Good evening. Welcome to the September 30th meeting of the 2020 meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. This meeting is being held virtually via Zoom video conference. Please be patient. We do our best to be efficient and allow everyone to participate equitably. This meeting is also being broadcast and streamed online by FCTV in real time. As this meeting is being recorded by Zoom and broadcast by FCTV, please be cognizant of what you say, how you say it, and what can be seen and heard in your background. Please silence all your other devices. The chair recognizes the attendance of our illustrious staff members, Jen, Susan, and Kevin, and our Board of Selectmen rep, Sam Patterson. Thank you all. We are missing Maury and Betsy tonight. Sorry, the alternates called up to the quorum tonight are Mark, Pat, and Peter. I'll remind you that for commenting, I'll call on each of you at the appropriate time. And all votes need to be done by roll call. So I'll call your name, state your name and your vote. To our public participants, there will be an opportunity for public comment for each hearing. If you'd like to comment on a particular hearing, you may submit any comments or questions via the chat function once that hearing has been opened. At the appropriate time, I will call for public comments, and any submissions will be read into the record. The link and further instructions are posted on the agenda. First up tonight is vote minutes of September 23rd.
Mr. Chair, I will vote there or move for their approval. I do, however, have one correction, and what I'll do is it's on page, it's fairly far into it. It's on the hearing on off of Fresh River.
Okay.
I'm not sure which page that is. Anyway, there was a discussion about zoning, perhaps moving the house further from the marsh toward the street, but which would require a variance from
no barking.
Fields.
No barking.
So at one point I made a comment about the fact that if they moved it close to the edge of the road, that it would, there'd be a problem in that the sideline on the north side, when they got to the 10-foot offset from the road, they'd be 5 feet apart off the road, and that this could be problematic. I can't find exactly where it is in here. I just noted it. But anyway, I'll move that there be adopted. And what I'll do is I'll send Jen an email with the correct wording tomorrow for that little section. It's just one sentence. Other than that, I find them in order and move their adoption.
Pat?
I have 2 items I'd like to tweak a little on page 8. 1/4 of the way down the page. I agree with Jen's interpretation of the state and local regulations. The structure does encroach into Zone A. You can only approve it by granting a variance. I don't know if the state regulation, and I cite the 1058-4D3, can be interpreted to allow compliance with local regulations by granting a variance. You could ask town council if a variance in the context of state regulation is considered compliance with our regulations. In my opinion, the property is not eligible for a variance and it doesn't comply with our regulations or the state's. Page 9, the bottom quarter. I don't think Attorney Brian Wall is involved with this project, but I see in the chat room that he's involved in a settlement agreement involving 3 properties before us tonight, the Cachadorian, Dundalis, and Vallis properties. I have a professional relationship with Attorney Wall that is not under the jurisdiction of the commission. Pursuant to the conflict of interest law, I have filed disclosure with our appointing authority and the town clerk, outline the relationship I can act without prejudice on all three matters presented to the commission involving Attorney Wall and make this statement to dispel any potential appearance of conflict. And I've typed this up redlined for Susan.
Thank you. Anybody else?
So again, I'll move to adopt it with corrections. And incidentally, my correction was on page 8 as well.
Okay,
I move to second
thank you.
as discussed.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the minutes as corrected. Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Birdie, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Aye.
Is unanimous. We have accepted the minutes as corrected. Next up, request for a continuance under a notice of intent. First request, Scott Tynell, 163 Bay Road, North Falmouth, Mass, for permission to conduct shellfish aquaculture within Rand's Canal and Megansett Harbor. Jen,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until October 21st.
you think we're going to be able to wrap this up then?
I hope so, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Anybody would like to make a motion to make this continuance till 10/21?
So move.
Second, O'Brien.
All right. We have a motion and a second to continue this hearing till 10/21. Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Birdie, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous that hearing is continued until 10/21. Next request for continuance, Frank and Donna Skelly, 369 Edgewater Drive West, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to raise, RAZE, an existing single-family dwelling and to construct a new single-family dwelling, to add a new Title V septic system and to reconfigure the driveway. Jen,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until October 21st.
So move.
Second.
thank you. We're going to get busy on 10/21, huh?
Yeah, look that
All
one.
right. We have a motion and a second to continue this hearing until 10/21. Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Birdie, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
Unanimous. This hearing is continued until 10/21. Next up, request for determination of applicability. First up, Catherine Stenson Lunt, 366 West Falmouth Highway, West Falmouth, Mass, for permission to upgrade to a Title V subsurface sewage disposal system. Kevin,
Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state and a -3 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Harris,
Walsh, second.
okay, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Birdie, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. Thank you. Next up, Christopher Bergen, 51 Weatherglass Lane, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to remove an area of pavement to reduce runoff into Green Pond. Kevin,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, before I provide my recommendation, I'd just like to state that the commissioners should have received 2 separate emails from me today from abutters who are concerned with the proposal. With that being said, staff views this as a positive project for the environment, and we recommend a -2 under the state and a -3 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Walsh, second.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments? All right, Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Bird, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. Thank you. Next up, Jimmy Leon Wyatt Jr. and Susan M. Gordon Castle, 56 T-Ticket Path, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct an addition, porch, patio, stone retaining wall, to install dry wells, and to upgrade to a Title V septic system. Kevin,
Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state and a -3 under the bylaw. And resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Walsh, second.
okay, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Any comments? All right, Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Bird, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure if you want to address this. It looks like we have someone in the attendance with a hand up. Not sure if they have a comment on one of these projects. It's Mr. Burgeon.
Jen,
Yep, I'm working on it. Mr. Burgeon, you need to type your question into the chat function because we've already gone past your hearing. In any case, the -2 means that project, if that was your question. He's not typing a question, Mr. Chairman.
we'll come back to that.
Okay.
Next up is the 187 Penzance Road Trust, Cindy Coates trustee, 187 Penzance Road, Woods Hole, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to renovate the existing dwelling within the existing footprint with no increase in structure. Kevin,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state and a -3 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Walsh, second.
we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Any comments? All right, Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Bird, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. Thank you. Jen?
Mr. Chairman, yes. Mr. Burgeon's question was, he wanted us to repeat the ruling. Mr. Burgeon, the ruling was a negative determination under the state and -2 under the state and -3 under the bylaw. That means you may proceed with your project. You do not have to file a notice of intent, so you may proceed.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Next up, continuing with RDAs, Fenton and Melody Brown, 159 Upalong Road, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to relocate an existing garage and to install a swimming pool and paver patio partially within flood zone AE 12. Kevin,
Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state and a -3 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Walsh, second.
all right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Any comments? All right. Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Bird, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. Thank you. All right. Next up are requests for a hearing under a notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. First up, Joseph A. Andrews, 302 Acapesket Road, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to raise, RAZE, an existing single-family dwelling and construct a new single-family dwelling with associated clearing, grading, landscaping, and mitigation plantings. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting continuance until October 28th.
Bird, so move. Do you have a reason?
There need to be some changes made to the plan.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Yes, Walsh, second.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue this hearing until 10:28. Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Mark?
Renee, aye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Steve?
Aye.
It is unanimous. This hearing is continued until 10:28. And I'd like to mention that our agent Alyssa is in attendance as well. Thank you. Next up, under notice of intent, Karen and David Howe, 0 Vineyard Street, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to implement a beach management plan that includes beach raking and beach nourishment above the spring high tide line. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to promote Stan Humphreys up as a panelist to present the project, as well as Attorney Daniels to represent the applicant, and Tim Santos to share the plan.
All right.
So, is there anyone else that I should be promoting up to your project team, gentlemen?
I don't.
Thank you.
Okay. Stan, would you like to present? Or Tim, you want to share the plans?
Yeah, I can share the plan. Stan, you're gonna need to take yourself off mute. I'll share the plan if you guys want me to do so.
Sure,
That
just
would be fine.
I'll
think-
give
ahead,
just a quick introduction. My name is Andrew Daniels. I'm legal counsel to Karen and David Howe. My opening comments will be extremely brief before I turn the presentation over to Stan Humphreys. Stan is a coastal geologist with environmental consulting and restoration, who I've had the pleasure of knowing for 30 years. That sounds just weird to say. And Tim Santos from Holmes and McGrath. As some of you may be aware, this site was subject to a prior order of conditions for beach nourishment and invasive removals in the coastal dune. There were what I'll describe as some ambiguities in that order that led to an enforcement order regarding the scope of raking activities. I'm here just to give a brief introduction and say that Karen and Dave come before the commission this evening with what we think is a thoughtful and substantive beach management plan prepared by respected professionals. And our desire, the outcome here, is an order of conditions that provides clarity and certainty for all of the parties. And with that, I'll turn it over to Stan. Thank you.
Good evening. For the record, Stan Humphreys, coastal geologist with UCR. Project site is located at 0 Vineyard Street, which is a beach lot that's located across the street from 55 Vineyard Street, where the house have a house. The property was staked on the 24th. And there was a comment that there were no stakes out there on the 23rd. We apologize for that day delay. Essentially, there are two activities that are proposed within this upper beach area, landward of the intertidal zone, shown in yellow on the plan. A buffer zone to the coastal dune, and it's within land subject to coastal storm flowage. One of the activities is raking of gravel or pebbles larger than an inch in diameter, and then placing them within or beyond 5 feet from the vegetated dune boundary. The second activity is an annual beach nourishment of 100 cubic yards per year over this area that's about 5,400 square feet, mainly to cover an exposed groin boulder or boulders that may not be as clear on this. Well, yes, probably pretty much in the center. It says exposed stones. But based on comments from staff and DEP, we do want to propose a modification to the proposal for raking and nourishment. Probably the most important one, is not to use this machine called the Sandman, but rather simply have hand raking done. We were proposing beach nourishment to be looked at in perpetuity, but because the commission has not done that in the past, we will work from 1 year to the next. We had proposed a horizon leveling method of pre and post surveys called the Emery method. That apparently was not acceptable by the town engineer, so we will commence with those surveys just before and just after the nourishment, and that will be done with standard survey instruments. There are other conditions that we have highlighted in our notice of intent on page 3 that replicate those conditions that were issued in an order just adjacent to us on the Acapexit Improvement Association. Without any further other detail, will be available for questions, but I just want to say, in conclusion, we think that the beach nourishment component of our proposal has far more benefits that outweigh any potential detriments of related, or I should say, of relocating the pebbles. Andrew, did you have anything else to add?
Stan, could you just speak for a moment about kind of the historic changes to this beach and kind of what, just a description of what's going on with the sand and the erosion?
Well, maybe first of all, just to make clear to the commission, the net sediment transport along the shoreline is from west to east. There is a groin that you can see at the bottom right-hand or left-hand corner of the plan. And what that's done is trapped sand on the west side and made it any deposit of sand on this beach a problem. So it is somewhat sand starved with respect to that. The historic mean high water has been at the landwardmost extent of the dune, but it's over the last 10 or 15 years, it's moved a little bit more seaward, maybe influenced by the dredging of Green Pond, position of that material on the Acapexit beach, which has then been able to move to the west during southeast wave conditions primarily. The gravel or pebble component of this beach is fairly well confined to the intertidal zone. It's just that maybe with spring high tides, there's more gravel or pebbles that go landward. That's really the area of focus for the raking. And just so the commission understands that deposition would be around that brighter yellow area, but not into the dune. So there are man-made influences on the property. This isn't a complete virgin area. It has had nourishment in the past. So how is that, Andrew?
Thank you.
I mean, overall, as I concluded with the predominance of the nourishment over the amount of pebbles relocated, we really do think that this fits into coastal resiliency and identifies or addresses some of the adverse effects of the groin.
Thank you. Does Tim Santos have anything he wants to add?
I have nothing to add, Jamie. I was here to kind of bring the plan up and answer any questions that the board might have specifically on the plan from our office.
Okay, thank you. All right. Jen, do you want to start?
Yes. Thank you, Stan. It's glad to hear that you've rethought the use of the Sandman machine. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate you, taking the staff's comments and DEP's comments and really looking at those, because that machine is going to be a problem. Stan, just because of the past, as Mr. Attorney Daniels said, the ambiguity of the order of conditions and this whole concern about raking the beach, could you put together a methodology before we close this hearing? So we'll probably have to continue it on the hand raking methodology. So just so the board is completely clear what it is that you want to do, so there is no confusion going forward, and that we can properly condition this so everybody is on the same page.
Surely, that's a good
Thank you. I would appreciate that. And my only other question at this point would be, where are you going to be getting the material for the beach nourishment?
Not clear on that, and we'd want to get a sieve analysis of the existing material as well as the borrow material and provide that to staff at least within 10 days of
Okay.
expected.
Okay.
And Jen, I think last. I'm
one
sorry.
last thing.
Sure.
1 second, Mr. Attorney Daniels. Just because there was concern, I think the last time the material placed on the beach, it didn't appear to be really compatible. So that was a concern that was raised to the staff. So we just want to make sure that the material is compatible and is appropriate for a beach environment. Right, Stan?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. I mean, the board has seen the staff report. Board members remember the history of the site. The enforcement order regarding the Sandman still stands. Stan, the site is staked now, so we'll go back out during the continuance phase and check it out again. There were concerns that were brought to the staff's attention about areas of beach grass that were that have been removed over the years. Probably if you're looking at the plan on the east side where the arrows go for like up to say proposed beach nourishment, like in that area. If you could look at the aerials over the years, Stan, and kind of you'll understand what we're talking about, having some of that beach grass removed. So maybe next time you'd be able to address that.
Okay,
Okay. I would focus on from, I can't remember what year the aerial, but I would just take a look at the last couple of aerials and you'll understand what we're talking about. And I think, Mr. Chairman, now that the methodology has changed, the staff's going, recommends that the board get the new methodology for beach maintenance activities in writing, so that everyone, we know what we're permitting. And other than that, I think, Mr. Chairman, with the with the continuance coming, staff doesn't have any more questions, or at least I don't. Kevin?
I do not have anything to add. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, then I'm gonna go for commission comments. Courtney, we'll start with you.
No comment.
All right. Kevin,
No comments, Mr. Chairman.
Mark,
No comments.
okay, Pat,
No comments, Mr. Chair.
okay. Peter,
Only one comment. It's very important to analyze what happened to the missing beach grass. And we can discuss that the next time, but that's important.
Steve,
In response to the staff's comments, and hope we can continue to move forward in that path.
good point. Jen, I don't know if this is a question for you, maybe for Stan, but is there a way to make sure that the sand is compatible with what's native there versus what was brought in a couple years ago?
That's what Stan was talking about, having a sieve analysis of the existing sand and then what they're proposing to bring in, submitted to the staff like 10 days prior. So we can mention that has to be done annually in order to put that, what was it, 100 cubic yards, Stan?
correct.
Okay. I do have one quick question, and maybe, I don't know if it's a question for Stan or for Tim, actually. The dune, or for maybe Attorney Daniels, the dune restoration plan had the planting of a cedar tree, and that doesn't appear to have been completed. Can someone address that? And the damage done to the big pine alongside the road, the alterations to the pine, and it's dying for some unknown reason.
As far as the pine, Jen, where exactly is the pine? Is it
next to the path?
All right.
I'm familiar with that, Jen, and the reasons for the pine, we are unaware. It has died, and we are entirely unaware of the reasons that it's died. It's certainly not anything that we did to the pine. We can tell you that unequivocally. And as for the planting of the cedar, we obviously need to do that before we close out the other order of conditions. We sought an extension of that order of conditions, and were denied that. So, from a permitting standpoint as to how we go back out and plant that, and we can have a discussion with you of whether we wrap that into this order of conditions, because the other order has expired essentially.
I think that would be a good idea, Mr. Daniels, because we'll probably require that tree to be planted prior to allowing any additional work on this property,
And that's
including
fine, sure.
requested in this notice of intent. So it's really important to complete, one project before requesting additional work.
That's understandable.
Okay.
So are you going to be looking for a revised plan, Jen, that shows the tree? Is that
Mhm.
what you're asking?
Correct.
All right. Thank you.
Do we need a continuance?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, just to let you know, there is one statement in the chat function.
Okay, why don't we take that now and then we'll deal with the
Okay.
continue, please.
So this is from Laura and Chuck Solnick. And they say we are abutters below David. We are the abutters below. David and Karen have been kind and thoughtful neighbors. We do, however, have some questions. First, assurance that the rocks no longer be deposited on our beach, nor in the jetty, nor on the sandy beach between our properties. Second, that the additional sand coming in, will it then cause our beach to be much lower and difficult to access? And third, we also just wanted to be certain that the sand coming in is environmentally clean sand. Thank you. Stan, can you answer the profile question?
Yes, I spoke to the gentleman last week and assured him anytime there was going to be work out there that there would be stakes placed on the property boundary so that staff know exactly what the Howe property is and what the Crabtree property is.
Okay, so you were going to do staking.
I think that there's one stake at the boundary line in the dune, but there needs to be another one coming seaward. So that's very clear where the limits of the Howe property are. The sand certainly will be clean, and that will be an area that's included in our nourishment, not to provide a deficit to their property.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Solnick.
So
And then we have one.
Is that it, Jen?
That's it for this hearing. There was another question, another
Oh, okay.
and on the weather glass one.
Okay. So can we have an official request for continuance then?
Well, one more second. I have another question from Laura Wilbert, but there will not be rocks put on the sandy beach between our properties. And what about the change in gradation when the sand is added? But there will not be rocks put on the sandy beach between our properties. I'm assuming that means the property again to the west. Yes. The sandy beach between the properties. Stan, can you address that?
I thought that I had addressed that.
Ms. Lincoln, we can address that in the methodology because there really won't be any movement of rocks with the hand raking. So.
Okay.
That's a good
Address
idea.
that in the methodology, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have a request?
Yeah, the applicant requested continuance, please.
Jen, your date?
A date, it's going to be October 28th, Mr. Chairman.
Is that good for you, Mr. Daniels?
It is.
October 20 or 28th?
28th.
Okay. At the request of the applicant, I move to continue this hearing till October 28th.
Walsh, second.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this hearing until 10:28. Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Ernie, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve,
Aye.
all right, that's unanimous. This hearing is continued until 10:28. Thank you, Mr. Santos, Mr. Humphries, and Mr. Daniels.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, give me 1 second. I'm answering a chat question. And then I will remove the panelists.
Tell me when you're ready.
If I could spell it would help. Okay. Sorry about that, Mr. Chairman. Someone had requested that one of the correspondence that you received regarding the RDAs be read into the record. But I think that's why Mr. Newton asked if you had all received it. So I'm all set to continue, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right. The next two hearings are continued NOIs, and they have been continued until October 21st. Therefore, that brings us to a continued request to amend an order of resource area delineation. Wings Pond LLC, 63 North Falmouth Highway, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to amend the ORAD and confirm that the vegetated wetland is an isolated freshwater wetland, not a bordering freshwater wetland, as classified in the original ORAD. To confirm the boundary of the isolated land subject to flooding under state regulations and the Falmouth Wetlands regulations, and to confirm the mean high water line of the certified vernal pool, and that the pool is protected under the state regulations and the Falmouth Wetlands regulations. Jen and or Kevin, I'm not sure who would state this.
Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until October 7th. There were some changes to the plan that need to be done to SAD, since determining isolated land subject to flooding is based on an engineering calculation. We've been having our engineering department review it. So we finally, they're in agreement and we just need it placed on a plan. So
it'll be quick.
it will be quick, Courtney, because there's really nothing to comment on. The board's either going to recommend you accept the amended ORAD, or we'd go back out there with the applicant and further discuss the wetland boundary. Because remember, this is just to confirm a wetland boundary. You will be seeing this property again. There's a reason why this ANRAD is going through.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, at the request of the applicant, I'll move to continue this hearing until October 7th.
Walsh, second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to continue this amendment until October 7th. Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Ernie, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve,
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. This hearing is continued until 10/7. Thank you. Next up, request to extend the existing order of conditions. First one, Anastasios Perifestas, trustee, 152 and 160 Penzance Road, Falmouth, Mass, DEP number 25-4116, requesting a one-year extension.
Yes,
Kevin?
Mr. Chairman,
Sorry.
staff recommends the one-year extension.
And the reason?
The reason for the request for extension?
Mhm.
Hang on, Courtney. Ongoing work, Courtney.
Okay,
Working out there.
so move.
Walsh, second.
Okay, we have a motion.
But I can tell you, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I can tell you that the wetland restoration part of the project has been completed.
Okay,
All right. So we have a motion and a second to grant a one-year extension. Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Brittany, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have granted a one-year extension. Thank you. Next request for an extension, Mullen Inc., 267 Clinton Ave, Falmouth, Mass, DEP number 25-4020, requesting a three-year extension.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is the Tides Motel, Falmouth Inner Harbor.
Yep.
So, it's basically a beach nourishment and, obviously beach maintenance, order of conditions. The staff will recommend the 3-year extension, but after the 3 years, we'll probably have them file a new notice of intent so we could have a new survey of the property every couple of years during these beach nourishment and beach maintenance activity projects. We'd like to have an updated survey, so.
All right.
Bird will move to approve a one-year, I'm sorry.
3-year.
Extension as requested by the applicant with the proviso that the next time they come in with an updated survey.
Walsh, second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to accept the requested 3-year extension. Any comments? All right. Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Brittany, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We've granted a 3-year extension. Thank you. Before we go to order conditions, I'm remiss. I neglected to mention that our staff assistant, Amy Coughlin, is in attendance as well. And I can't tell you how appreciative I am that all of our staff is always present, and never mind the support that they give us, but the moral support as well, and participating in these hearings. So thank you all for that. Next up,
I have such a good staff.
we really do. We really do.
I'm lucky.
Our work a lot easier.
So Sam, if you're listening, as the Board of Selectmen, would you put them all in for a raise, please? All right.
Second,
Go order of conditions. First up, Michael and Jennifer Trespass, 34 Sweet Road, Falmouth, Mass.
1 second, Mr. Chairman, when I get a little bit organized here.
All right. We do love our paperwork, don't we?
Oh, yes, we do. Thing in this. Okay, 1 second, Mr. Chairman. Road. Oh, yes, this was the BSS design raise and rebuild. They're all on the quorum. So. Sweet. I think the only thing we were going to do was work with Jeff on a planting scheme or planting placement for that buffer zone.
And
Does
have they done
anybody
that? or
remember
are they gonna
anything
work-
else?
Have they done that or are they going to work with you on that?
Alyssa mentioned something to me the other day. She was talking with Jeff. I think he was wondering if he had to submit the plan or just work with us. And I told him that it was working with us to
Okay,
do
but
the proper placement of the plants.
so that should be a specific,
Yeah, that's what we're
Yeah.
writing as a special condition.
okay. And the RIN station is not in the plans at this time, correct?
Not at this time.
Okay.
They'll come back for an amendment.
All right. Anybody have anything they want to add? All right,
I'll move to accept the order as discussed.
Walsh, second.
okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the order conditions as discussed. There's no other comments. Going to call for the vote. Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Bird, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We've issued an order of conditions. Thank you. Next up, Gregory C. Marcotte and the White Sands Association Trust, 59 Davis Neck Road and end of Davis Neck Road, East Falmouth, Mass.
I'm gonna
looks
have
like-
to tell you, Mr. Chairman, I was busy trying to find one of the engineers for their hearing when Mike was presenting this last week. So Kevin Newton, I'm gonna have to put you on the spot and say, were there any special conditions that the board wanted to see on this hearing? I mean, this application?
No.
It's just repair of the wall and then replacing the stone steps
Yeah.
off the wall with a wooden
Right,
structure, correct?
Right.
Yeah,
Nothing's coming to mind.
it did not include a beach nourishment component, did it? No,
No.
no,
and they got Board of Selectmen approval, correct?
correct.
Right. I have a note on here about, we were looking for a methodology on the stairs, but I believe they addressed that. Courtney, do you agree?
I agree.
Okay,
So I'll make a motion to accept the order as discussed.
Walsh, second.
okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the order conditions as discussed. Does anybody have anything they want to add? All right, I'm gonna call for the vote. Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Me, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have an order of conditions. Thank you. All right, last up for order of conditions, Francis M. Keegan, 42 Deer Run Lane, Falmouth, Mass.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this was to remove the invasives and then redo the bank vegetation in Fiddler's Cove. They have us to plan to address some of the staff comments about adding more native shrubs to replace that wildlife habitat value that was going to be lost with the removal of those invasive shrubs. So I think they've addressed the staff's concerns. I don't know if the board had any concerns.
Okay. And for the record, the quorum was everyone but Maury, so we're good.
Yes.
All right. Does anybody have anything they want to add? All right.
I'll move to accept the order as discussed.
Walsh, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the order conditions as discussed. Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Bernie, aye.
Pat,
Yes, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Aye.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. All right, last up, or second to last, other business, fall holiday schedule.
Yes, I know some of you have been asking me what your fall schedule is going to be because this board likes to do everything in like 4-month chunks. So we have the October 14th off. We have to have a discussion about one date, guys. Well, 2 dates. We have November 25th. That is the day before Thanksgiving off. We're going to do December 23rd, the day before Christmas Eve off. And Jamie has decided to also do December 30th because you guys usually do the last 2 weeks of the year you take off.
No, it's because it's my birthday.
Oh,
There you go.
the only date in flux for you guys right now is November 11th. So if you take October 14th off, you would have 2 meetings. So it would be October 14th off. You would meet for 2 weeks. Oh, I'm sorry, November 10th. And we could potentially take November 4th off. Then you would meet the 11th and the 18th. So you meet for 2 weeks and then have the 25th off the day before Thanksgiving, and then meet for 3 weeks before the end of the year break. The November 4th date is the only one I want to know if you guys want to take off. Doesn't matter to the staff. It's just, what would you like to do?
Town meeting issue there.
Well, Courtney, I can't project that far out because we have to put the everything on a schedule within that 3-week time period. So I can only right now kind of anticipate what October is going to look like, and it's busy. So I can't anticipate what November 4th is going to look like, or we could have 2 RDAs that night, or we could have 5 or 6 notices that night. I don't know.
No, my question really was.
After my discussions with DEP today, it is very busy out there right now.
Yeah, what I'm pointing out is that typically on the week of town meeting, we don't have a thing.
Oh, that's right.
That's what I'm asking. I don't care whether it's the 4th or the 10th or whatever it is, but you got to make sure there's no conflict there.
Do we have the date for the town meeting yet?
I think they do. Hang on.
It's the 16th, Jen.
What was that?
It's the 16th.
Oh, the 16th.
Really? Oh, yeah, okay.
That seems late. So
Because of Veterans Day. Right.
So we're actually probably going to have to take the 18th off because of town meeting.
Have you scheduled anything for that date yet?
No, Courtney, I haven't. So that'll be November 18th, Mr. Chairman. We should probably schedule off just in case.
So I would.
I need to be at town meeting. Okay, so we'll do no meeting on November 18th. So unfortunately, that may trigger a special meeting to vote orders somehow, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Yeah, we
So
should.
it'll be. Thank you for reminding me of that, Courtney. That was good.
Guess what I'm getting at is that we probably should should plan to meet on the 4th.
Yeah, no, that's
Yes.
right. So
Have
thank
mine.
you. So no meeting on the 14th and no meeting on November 18th and 25th and no meeting on the 23rd and 30th. And then we'll regroup at the beginning of the year.
Sounds good to me. Everybody in agreement?
Sounds
Oh,
good.
Adriana says there's only
Good.
9 articles, so it should only be one night. Thank you, Adriana.
Sure, that's what we were told.
So do you want to rethink that, guys, or
Well, how far ahead would we add it back in if we wanted to?
you can add it back in whenever you'd like to?
Aye.
I'd say leave it alone for the moment. Maybe we
Okay.
can address it in, I don't
Okay.
know, 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yep, we can do that.
Yeah. See if we have any more information on town meeting.
Yeah, okay, no problem. We can regroup and discuss it next week too.
Hmm.
We just like to kind of give the engineers a little bit of a heads up, a couple of months heads up, just so they can, their scheduling purposes too. So.
All right.
Okay, cool.
Jen, could you send the dates out in an email?
Yeah, Amy will do that for you tomorrow.
Yeah, as I've said in the past, my only concern is we take time off and then we make ourselves have a meeting until midnight, so.
And it's
With
almost
I know it's hard to-
impossible for me to predict.
All right, so we'll leave that alone for now, right? And then maybe we'll revisit it if we hear anything different about town meetings.
Okay,
All right, so with that, last
so
item,
Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, so leave having the 18th off.
at the moment, yeah,
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
yeah. All right. Last motion, who wants to make it?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Walsh, second.
You ever notice there's a pattern that every meeting, we end up with the same person making the motions and and I end up looking at those two people like nobody else,
I noticed.
consistency, I like it.
And-
All
and
right, so we have a motion and a
next time
second.
I'll ask my cat to make the motion.
Yeah, I see that.
Especially with the current configuration of members.
Yeah. All right, Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Rooney, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
and Steve.
Pat and I.
We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thomas?
Thank
Night,
you.
everybody.
Evening.